On today's episode, we'll get you updated with all of the latest injury news heading into baseball's opening day. Reuven will give all of the status updates, prognosis, and will give the corresponding fantasy advice on those player situations. Our mega Beat the Shift injury episode is next. And welcome to another episode of the Beat the Shift podcast. I am your host, Ariel Cohen, and with me as always is Reuven Guy. What's going on, Reuven?
I'm doing great. How you doing today?
As you can probably tell by my voice, I'm slightly run down. It's been a very eventful draft season and very busy at my day job, so a little bit under the weather. I'm feeling okay, but just a little tired and beat. And hopefully, though, hopefully you guys still enjoy the episode with my voice like this. But you sound pretty cheery, Reuven.
Yeah, well, baseball season has sort of started. I thought maybe
Did.
you had your hoarse voice because of the fact you got up at 6 in the morning Eastern Standard Time to watch the Dodgers start, or if you're in Los Angeles, 3 a.m. to watch your World Series champs start their season, which is kind of weird. But yeah, no, I mean, the season sort of started. I like the way, I don't mind having playing in a different country, but it sort of takes away the shine of opening day for the Dodgers when they come home, I think.
Alex Vesia got a save, and so did Tanner Scott. So the Dodgers are off and running with their bullpen committee, right? It's still going to be Tanner Scott, though, right?
And they'll be 162-0 this year, right?
There you go. Well, I guess maybe it's good, or at least not as bad, that I've got a hoarse voice today, because it's our injury episode podcast, and that's Reuven's time to shine here, where we're just going to go through all the injuries, what the story is, when they should be back, and the fantasy advice surrounding it, so that you can determine what to do and all the strategy. Before we go to the players, we will do, of course, some strategy as always, and talking about should we go for the risk of the injury, should we not, when to, and so on and so forth. So we'll just jump right into it. And I guess the first question to you, Reuven, is how do you draft injured players? What kind of risk should you be taking? What kind of risk should you not be taking? And how early in the draft is it okay to take risks? Do you want to take an injured player in the first round? Freddie Freeman, going second round, is he going to play that much? Not injured exactly, although he did miss the first 2 games in Japan. So let's just break it down in general. What's your advice on how much risk we should take on in terms of players actually being injured?
Well, I think it's based on your team construct. If you're planning on building in some injury risk to your roster, then 100% there's no reason in drafting injured players or players who are going to come back in a month, if they say a month or 2 months or whatever it may be. It also depends on how much room you have on your bench, if you're able to have players, sit on your bench for a while and work it that way. But it also depends on the team. It also depends on the type of injury. There's a lot of different things that play into it. But there's, you shouldn't really shy away from it at the right cost. I think it also comes down to how much draft capital you have to actually put into it. And I think, everyone has different appetite and everyone gets burned 1 year to the next with injured players. And it's all a matter of what you feel comfortable with. And if you were burned last year with an injured player, maybe this year you won't. Maybe next year you will. Maybe you have to get over it a year. Sometimes that happens. And I think that there's no player that should not be not thought of at all, except for maybe like Byron Buxton to to draft. But otherwise, I think that every player has its cost, and I think it's worthwhile.
Well, I mean, there's really a difference in terms of the type of injury and the situation. Byron Buxton, well, he's not hurt, but when he's going to get hurt. Mike Trout, well, he's often injured. Well, he's going to DH more this year. Is that going to help? So it's really case by case in a lot of reasons. Ronald Acuna, are you going to get the steals out of him? When is he going to come back? How much? Jared Jones, is he injured? He's going for a second opinion. What the heck does that mean? Does that take him completely off your board? Right? Of course, it also depends on the league style, right? Because if you're in a 10-team league versus a 15-team league, you can take a lot more risk. A player who you're going to take for $1 in a 10-team league, probably worth the risk. But if they would ordinarily be an $8 player in a 15-team league, I might not want to take that player. Right? So it really is case dependent. The general strategy, though, is you can take more injury risk in a shallower league because the replacement level is higher. If you're in a mono league, if you're going to take a guy, if something goes wrong, the replacement has partial playing time. You don't want that. You want to be very risk averse in there. For me, early in the draft, first, I'm going to say 10 rounds even, I don't try to touch any players with injury. I mean, a guy like Spencer Strider coming back, I would touch after round 10 in a 15 team league. I might not touch earlier. Now, Strider actually looks pretty good in spring training, so I might be warming up to him, but in general, I wouldn't. In a 10-team league, where Reuven and I are doing a 10-team league this upcoming this weekend, I might want to take Spencer Strider because if he doesn't work, well, it's a 10-team league. There's plenty of relevant guys that I can pick up on the waiver wire just in case he falters.
And I think the main thing you have to think about also is how many innings or how many at bats you have set up for that injured player. As long as they're commiserate to whatever the injury is and how long they're going to be out, then there's no reason why you can't, just do it. Just draft the guy in as long as you have a plan of how you're going to replace those innings or replace those at bats. And if you have a plan set up and you draft accordingly, then it shouldn't be a problem.
All right, so before we get into the actual players, I know you've done this before, Reuven, but I think it'd be really, really helpful for you to go through some of the types of injuries, sprain versus strain, the tendon versus, because we hear these stuff all the time, and we're not medical professionals. By the way, but before can you actually tell the audience what your actual medical professional credentials are?
Yes, I'm an orthopedic and pain management physician assistant. I deal with patients who have these sports injuries all the time. I give injections to knees, to shoulders, to wrists, to elbows all the time. I've had high school players come with me asking about Tommy John surgery. I've had former MVPs. I can't say who because of HIPAA, but I had a former MVP actually come into my office and I dealt with him with his arthritis in his knee. So I deal with all these types of injuries all the time with everyday people. Athletes are a little bit different, but it's the same type of injury, and usually recovery time is slightly better for athletes because they're built better. But it's basically the same idea because everyone has the same body.
Can you tell us National League or or American League for the guy who had the MVP?
Major League Baseball.
So that's a no. You can't tell us.
That's Major League Baseball.
We're just testing you.
If you listen to prior podcasts, I did mention what league it was. I am not going to repeat it.
All right. Well, I'm glad that you're good with the HIPAA, Reuven, and good for you for upstanding that medical protocol. Thank you. But yeah, Reuven
Yes.
is a professional. I've actually gone to Reuven for medical treatment once, so he does know what he's doing. I can tell you that. And go ahead, Reuven. Why don't you tell the audience, describe some of these injuries and give us the goodies.
Okay, well, first of all, let's break it down before I get into the actual ligaments and tendons like you had mentioned. I'm going to talk a little about the injuries to different players, whether it's pitchers or hitters. Now, when it comes to pitchers, obviously everyone is always concerned about the elbow, but the shoulder is actually much worse. Usually, recovery time for a shoulder surgery or shoulder injury is a lot longer than elbow. Elbow, you hear about Tommy John, we hear about the sprain, strain, soreness in the elbow. That could be anything. It could be nothing. It could be like a tennis elbow, or something like Giancarlo Stanton is dealing with. It could be Tommy John, so it could be anything. And usually, when it comes to surgery, we know Tommy John surgery, it's usually recovery time is 12 to 18 months. We have a better idea of that as opposed to shoulders, because shoulders are a lot trickier because they're a bigger joint and a lot more things can happen. When pitchers have lower body injuries like knee, foot, ankle, that type of thing, that can affect how they pitch. That can affect their pushing off, landing on their legs, whatever it may be, and that can affect their overall control because for a pitcher, you have to keep repeating the same motion over and over again. If you're off by a little bit, it can throw off your mechanics completely, and then you have a whole bunch of issues. So those are the main things that you have to worry about. For hitters, upper body, you have shoulder, elbow, hand injuries. That stuff can affect your power. The lower body can affect your speed if you have a problem with your ankles or knee or something like that. Also, the bottom of the foot, like plantar fasciitis, like Albert Pujols had a couple of years ago, and you saw last year in the playoffs with Brandon Nome, he had it. He could barely move around, and it affects power. It affects running and everything like that. When it comes to other things like fractures, most fractures take 4 to 6 weeks to heal, depending on the fracture. If there's surgery, it's usually 6 to 8 weeks. It all depends on how bad the fracture is and what kind of surgery is needed and everything like that. Some fractures don't need surgery; they just need rest. That's usually a 3 to 4 week type of thing. So these are the different types of things you have to look for. Now, when you hear the terms ligament, tendon, this is what exactly it means. A ligament is a fibrous connective tissue that attaches bone to bone and usually serves to hold structures together and keep them stable. Okay. Examples of this, the UCL, that's the most prominent. We hear about it all the time, but it's in the elbow. It's also in other parts of the body also. Also other joints. You also have the ACL, MCL, LCL, that's in the knee. And you have the meniscus. The meniscus is support between the two parts of the leg. And when moving, it can tear and give less stability and actually can affect power. This happened to Jay Bruce, I think, a while ago, a couple years ago when he had a meniscus tear. He was out for a month and it affected his power when he came back a little bit. So that's always something to watch, and that's always something that has to be taken care of surgically if they can't play through it. Because sometimes players do try to play through it, which is not the best idea. But sometimes they just do it and they don't tell anybody. A tendon, as opposed to a ligament, is a fibrous connective tissue that attaches muscle to bone. A tendon serves to move the bone or the structure. That's the difference between a ligament and tendon. So when you hear a ligament sprain or a tendon sprain, that's the idea. Now, when you hear the terms sprain and strain, the difference between a sprain and a strain is that a sprain injures the bands of tissues that connect the two bones, like think of a big rope on a ship, while a strain involves an injury to muscle or to the band of tissues that attach a muscle to a bone. Okay. A strain, when you strain, usually the recovery time is similar to a strain. Sometimes you'll hear in the reports, sprain, strain, you don't know what it means. They're basically the same thing. A strain usually is a lesser version of a sprain. That's typically how, for recovery time, that's what everyone cares about.
So what's the recovery time for strains and sprains?
It depends on the severity. There are different levels. Like if players have a hamstring strain, there can be a mild to moderate to severe. A mild strain of any muscle, whether it's a hamstring or whether it's a thigh, a calf, whatever it may be. A mild is usually a 2 to 4 week recovery time. A moderate is 4 to 6 week, and a severe is 6 to 8. Usually, when there's a severe strain or sprain, there is a tear also. So usually that's a much longer recovery time, and that's why you can hear if someone has a pectoral sprain and it's a moderate to severe one, they could be out for 2 to 3 months. That's why the longer time. Also, the treatment is a little bit different. A treat of strain is just rice. I'm sure people have heard this before. Rest, ice, compression, elevation. To treat a sprain, it depends on severity. You can bandage it, tape it up. You can stabilize it. You hear a walking boot. Players are on walking boots. So that's one way you can, treat a sprain. And also another thing you're gonna hear is different types of injections. Now there are two main types of injections that players get. You have the cortisone injection, which is also steroid. Cortisone and steroid are the same thing. They're interchangeable. So when you hear one, it means the exact same thing. Just like Advil is ibuprofen is Motrin. They're all the same thing, just different name. One's more expensive than the other. That's the only difference. And also you hear a PRP injection. A cortisone injection is a steroid injection which helps get rid of the inflammation in the area of the injection. And the idea is when you get rid of the inflammation, you're able to move around a little bit better and you have less pain and you can actually try to play through it. Like a couple years ago, actually many years ago, this was almost 20 years ago when Kurt Schilling was playing, he had that issue with a bloody sock. He had a cortisone injection. So he had a steroid injection which got rid of the inflammation, got rid of the pain, and he played through it. That's one way of doing it. A PRP injection is when you take your blood, spin it, get rid of the bad stuff, keep the good stuff, and re-inject it back to the area where you have the issue. So a lot of pitchers who have an issue with their elbow will try a PRP injection before even thinking about surgery because that good part of the blood sometimes can help regenerate
It actually
some
works.
of
It
the
actually
tissue.
works.
It does work. Works more on people on regular people and not as much on players because players you're always doing over and over again the same motion over and over again. So you're not giving it really time to help and to help heal. If a regular person has a PRP, you have a better chance of healing because you don't have that repetitive motion over and over again, and you're not aggravating it as much. So a PRP does help. If you do a PRP and it helps a little bit, then you can do a second one. Shohei Ohtani had a PRP and he tried to pitch and he was okay for a little bit, and then he tried another one and then he went for surgery, went for Tommy John. So PRPs can help, but it's also a matter of every person. And I say this
All
to
right,
all
so
my
the
patients.
cortisone one, if we hear that, that's probably more helpful than the PRP.
Cortisone is more short term for
All
more
right,
short
because
term
it's
use.
inflammation.
PRP is more for a long term type issue.
Okay, that's good to know. It's good to know. Hey, by the way, strategy question. Are there any injuries that you would say that maybe drafters give too much of a discount on or not enough of a discount? So, if oh, this guy has a strain, 6 to 8 weeks. Is there any type of injury that we should say, oh, actually, this is a buying opportunity because everyone's gonna, take down the players too much in their draft boards, or maybe the opposite, maybe, oh yeah, you hear this, people are not giving enough of a discount, we really should take them much lower.
Yes, my answer to this is spring training injuries. When it comes to soft tissue injuries, whether it's muscle or whatever it may be during spring training, people always right away they knock the player down 1 or 2 rounds when the player may only be out for a short period of time. So I think people can take advantage if you hear that someone has a strain and they're out for a couple of weeks, and if your team can survive for the first 2 3 weeks without the player, that's fine. The problem is that when this happens, sometimes people do not take the time off, and they get worried and they end up having the roster spot there, and then they lose the player for an extended period of time, or the player has a setback, and then you have a whole bunch of issues that go along with that. But I think the most undervalued players are the ones that have these soft tissue injuries during spring training that players overcompensate for in their drafts. During the season, different ball of wax, and you should be taking 50 cents to the dollar for most injuries if you know they're going to be out for an extended period of time.
All right, so let's get into some of the actual players and a lot of these medical questions, that will come up as examples when we do that. We're going to start with hitters and no particular order. Let's start with Gunnar Henderson. What's his story?
Well, Orioles manager Brandon Hyde said this past week that the status for Gunnar Henderson for opening day was still up in the air when he was diagnosed with a mild intercostal muscle strain. That's a muscle strain in the rib cage. They were quote unquote very very hopeful that Henderson would be ready to start the season. He took batting practice actually a couple days ago, but he still may need some at bats because it is spring training. He may need a couple more at bats. He may actually miss a couple of days, maybe a week, depending on how he goes. But if he starts going full tilt and you start to hear more issues, then you may want to back off on him. Ramon Urias is a guy who may see more playing time if he remains healthy because he was going through an injury issue himself. But Ramon Urias is the guy to look for to replace him.
I've got ATC projecting him for over 635 plate appearances, and that's even with the injury. I mean, last year he had over 700. You think he's a good bet to keep that good
Yes,
volume?
yes, because young players usually heal quicker. So the answer to that is yes.
And he's not really going down much in the ADP. He's maybe gone down 2 or 3. His ADP is like around 9 right now. Maybe some pitchers are being pushed up a little bit, and maybe Soto and some of those outfielders are being pushed up a drop. So he's sinking, but like 2 picks literally in the ADP.
Yeah, and that's a very minor discount. If you're a big Gunnar Henderson guy, there's you can take that 2 player discount if you can.
Yeah, I personally don't draft him at all. I think it's also because the shortstop position, I've got a lot of bargains that I find in the mid rounds. So to set myself up with it, I know he's fantastic, but I think, especially in 5 outfielder leagues, the outfielder to me is the more important position. So if I have a similar player, same value, I'd rather have Soto over him. If you're in a shallower outfield league, like a Yahoo league, then Gunnar Henderson to me is a much better pick as well. So
Well, also for this injury, you may want to think about if he tries to steal any bases, he may get off to a slow start stealing bases. That may affect it a little
right.
bit, but you're not really getting him so much for stolen bases. He did have 21 stolen bases last year, so he will give you some. But at the beginning of the year, he may back off a little bit just to get into the rhythm of things.
All right, Ronald Acuna Jr., obviously, we know that he can steal 70 bases. But the question is, when is he coming back? I have ATC projecting him for about 450 at bats. Supposed to, from what I heard, coming back mid-May. What are you hearing?
Yes, early to mid May is the time frame for him. But they may take it a little bit slow for him. That lineup is very deep. They don't necessarily. I mean, they need him, but they don't need him. They played perfectly well down the stretch without him last year, and they want him to be healthy for the end of the year. When he had his prior surgery in a couple of years ago, he may have pushed it too soon, too fast, and that may have hindered him toward the end of the season. So they probably want him to make sure that he takes it a little bit slow. But yeah, the first half of May is probably where he's going to go. He's been going through baseball activities already. He hasn't been cleared to play in games yet. He's hoping to start a rehab assignment sometime after opening day, and he'll probably need about 2 to 3 weeks of a rehab assignment, possibly just to get his feet wet, and we'll see how that goes.
Royce Lewis, I feel like this is Byron Buxton 2.0 here. I mean, I just won't draft the guy. He seems to just get injured every 10 seconds.
Yeah, Royce Lewis, I'm always nervous whenever he runs down the first baseline. You never know he's going to get hurt again. He has a hamstring, has a left hamstring issue. He injured it running out a ground ball to first base. The MRI showed a moderate left hamstring strain, which I mentioned before, that could be 4 to 6 weeks. He's been ruled out for opening day. Could he come back sooner? Probably, but with his injury history, I wouldn't bet on it. The guy who would take his place would be Brooks Lee. He does have some major league experience in the past, so he's a guy. If you have Royce Lewis, Brooks Lee can be if you're in a deeper league, Brooks Lee is the guy to take just to fill in the spot for now.
I think people just don't discount him enough. I mean, people are still taking him pretty early. Do you agree that he should
Well,
be?
well, they do because his when he does stay on the field, he is very valuable. The problem is he can't stay on the field. This is exactly it's Byron Buxton 2.0 in Minnesota. Maybe it's that Minnesota doesn't have a good quote unquote medical staff. I mean, if you hear some interviews, AJ Minter was actually interviewed on a Mets podcast, and they said, "Why did you choose the Mets?" And one of the reasons why he said is because they have a great medical staff with the
Really?
Mets. He actually said that because he had a hip surgery and David Peterson had the exact same type of hip surgery and he saw how the Mets brought him along and how he excelled toward the end of the year. So he said one of the reasons why he signed with the Mets is because he's heard such great things about their medical staff. Can you say the same thing about Minnesota? Can you say the same thing so much about let's say, a team like the Yankees, who have for older players with chronic injuries?
Yeah, Luis Severino just went on a show saying that even like the nutritionists on the Yankees were good, but the Mets was like at a different level. I can't believe it, but I think you might be right on this one. And by the way, who do you have is going to have more at bats this year, Byron Buxton or Royce Lewis?
Royce Lewis. Royce Lewis, Byron Buxton. Yeah,
But
I've had
Buxton's
him on a
healthy
couple
right now,
teams.
right? He's healthy.
Let me check. Let me check the morning newspaper, and I'll let you know if he's still healthy.
All right. That's all we're going to talk about for Byron Buxton, but we did have to mention him on the show. Very quickly, I think the answer is clear, but Bobby Witt Jr., I mean, he just came right back. He already had a homer. No problems, right?
He's fine, no problem.
Okay. Christian Walker. Now, he had some issue last year which lingered, and I think the same issue. Can you talk about it, and should we be cautious about Christian Walker?
Yeah, he's got a left oblique injury. He had an MRI that didn't show a strain or a sprain or anything like that, so the Astros are not really too concerned. They're just calling it soreness and not a strain, and he's expected to possibly play over this weekend. So if he's able to play, he shouldn't. It may affect his power just a little bit to start the season, but otherwise, I don't think he's going to be affected too much.
Okay, Giancarlo Stanton. I mean, we know his issues. I mean, is he going to play more than half the season?
No. If I was a betting man, I'd say maybe he'll play 30 or 40 games this year, if at all, because he's even considering surgery. He was diagnosed with bilateral lateral epicondylitis or bilateral tennis elbow, which is painful when he swings the bat. That's a problem, and the only way this goes away is with an injection and rest, and that can take a long time. It's considered severe, and because of the fact he even mentioned the possibility of surgery, if he does have surgery, he's out for the entire year. He's a guy that there's even in deep leagues, maybe if you have a 50 round draft, you want to take him, pick number 50, fine, but otherwise I'd stay far away.
I mean, certainly in an NFBC league, where there's no IL, you can't take him.
No,
But if
no.
you're in a 15-team league with, like, let's say, unlimited spots, I mean, a last
Unlimited
bench
IL, then yes.
unlimited IL, like
yes.
Last bench round, you're taking him and stashing him. I guess that's still good, right?
Well, you don't really have to because who else is going to? I mean, he'll be out there. If you start hearing rumblings that he's
Unlimited
starting to get
IL
better,
is, that's something else,
yeah, I know, but
right?
but
I
very
mean, if
few
you're getting
leagues
a
have
half a
completely.
season out of a guy who, in a 15-team league is, at least a $3 player, then, take him in the last bench, put him on the IL in your draft. Why
But
not,
he's
right?
also a guy the Yankees want for the postseason because he's very good in the postseason. So
Right.
they're not going to push him to
But
come
what
back
if you're in
any sooner
a
just to help.
head-to-head league with playoffs in the end? Then that's got to be a
Then
more
then it may be
right,
worthwhile. Yes, that may be
right.
the one situation I may consider him.
And you got to know your league settings. Like I took Sean Manaea in the reserve round in the head-to-head points league. I took him because he's not performing now, but for a bench spot, he's going to be eligible for the playoffs. I have no concern. I mean, did you have any concern about Sean Manaea?
Not really. They probably caught it really early, and and I think they said that
It
it's
was a
going to be
lat, right?
6 weeks or so. It's a lat, 6 to 8 weeks possibly. Um, I'm not overly concerned with him because they caught it so early in the spring, like the first week in March. 6 to 8 weeks, you're looking about May, so you may miss a month and a half of him. He may come back. If I had to guess, probably toward the end of May, beginning of June. But it also depends on how he's able to build up because remember he didn't have any spring training, so he has to go through his own personal extended spring training before he comes back.
Right, but for my fantasy team, because it's a head-to-head points league, and I'm worried about the playoffs, well, he's really almost like full value for the playoffs potentially. In fact,
Yes,
maybe even
correct.
better. Maybe he's more rested because he didn't pitch as much and many innings. And so a guy who might be like let's say a $10 player, I'm getting for zero, and in Touter's unlimited IL, I just stash him and go. So you really have to know your format. In an NFBC league, I'm not drafting Sean Manaea, even a 15-team league, because I don't want the dead weight for even a month on my bench.
Unless you draft a really deep pitching staff and then he's going really cheap, I could still see him drafting in a 15 team league.
Right. All right. Well, sorry we jumped to pitchers, but I had to bring up the Met right now.
All right,
All right. Let's
no
do
problem.
Freddie Freeman. So we know what Freddie Freeman's value is. Uninjured and before any injury concern, I was willing to take him in the middle of the second round. I think people are maybe not even willing to take him in this middle of the third round, and that's because the Dodgers might play with his playing time, might rest him more. We don't even know why, or maybe you don't. Maybe you know why he didn't play the first two games in Japan. He wasn't exactly right. It's not a good sign. It's not a good sign, Reuven. Should we be cautious about drafting Freeman? Obviously, the skills are there, and we know when he plays he's awesome. But at the top of the draft, playing time does matter, and you don't want to be drafting players who are not going to get you the full at bats in the first two rounds.
Well, both him, I'd put him and Mookie Betts in the same conversation because they both missed the first two games. A lot of leagues don't have the first two games in their as their part of the lineup. Some people do. If you do, you could still put Freddie Freeman in because he'll be back by opening day. He had a rib issue for the first two games. That's why he was out. He felt much better the second day and he wanted to play, but Dave Roberts held him out. And they said they want to try maybe to have him play over the weekend. So if he's able to play over the weekend, and you're drafting on Sunday or Monday, there's no reason why you shouldn't, take that discount because he should play as many games as as he's not going to miss any more time from this rib issue. I don't think. That's my opinion on this, but
Okay.
things can change. He can go out there on over the weekend and re-injure it or make it worse because he's not 25 years old and he may not come back as quick. But I'm not as worried. As for Mookie Betts, he just had an illness. They sent him home. He'll be fine for opening day, so don't worry about him.
Yeah, he had the flu or whatever. And by the way,
Yeah.
can you imagine the Dodgers? They're missing Mookie Betts and they're missing Freddie Freeman, who are I don't know potential Hall of Famers or close to it, and
Yes.
they still no problem. You were missing two Hall of Famers, no problem. And they win the game.
Well, it's when you're talking about the Dodgers and any other team that there's in the National League is the Dodgers and everybody else. So
I mean, it's just crazy. Moving on, Jerkson Profar. What is his story?
he dove for a ball during a spring game and landed on his left wrist. He took BP. He's not expected to miss too much more time. He should come back playing over the weekend if he and there he's projected to make it for opening day, so he should be good. But if he doesn't, they have Brian De La Cruz there, who was an everyday outfielder for the Marlins and last year, and he played, and he's a serviceable outfielder. And they also actually just signed today the former Yankee, and what's his name? I forgot his name. The guy who doesn't play anymore. The guy who can't field. The guy who can't anything.
Don't remember.
I can't remember his name offhand. But anyway, they do have a lot of depth, so I'm not overly concerned about his issue. And don't worry. And I would not even consider drafting him or his backup Brian De La Cruz if you don't really need to.
Okay, let's move on. And by the way, how's my voice holding up? Is it all right, Ruvain?
Your voice is fine.
Okay, doing the best here, guys, for everybody, because I think this is such an important episode. Brandon Nimmo. Now he struggled with last year. I've heard him say he's 90%, but is this going to linger? Why don't you tell everybody what the issue is, and is this going to linger? Should we be hesitant to draft Brandon Nimmo in 2025?
Okay, so Brendan Nimmo, I mentioned earlier, last year he dealt with plantar fasciitis and he wasn't running at 100% yet in spring training because of his foot. But then he started dealing with some knee inflammation, and he was brought along very slowly. He received a gel injection, which was interesting because in my practice, we give gel injections to patients who have arthritis in their knee. It's usually to help with some of the broken cartilage in the knee and help people move around a little bit better, that type of thing. He's been playing in the outfield, and he actually came back and he played the outfield I think yesterday and the day before as well. He's been DHing. The Mets really don't want to use him as DH. They really want to put him in the outfield, if anything. This is something he may be dealing with for the entire season on and off. He may not say anything, but he may be dealing with this for the season, and it may actually affect some of his power. So that's something to watch for. If he goes into these major power droughts, there may be something underlying that he's not talking about.
When would we be able to tell in the season if there's a concern?
Give him a month. Give him a month. See how much outfield he plays. See how much time he spends as a designated hitter. See if he's actually taking the extra base when he's on base. See how his power numbers. I'd say about a month or so, you have a better idea. And if the Mets think that it's really bad, they can shut him down because the Mets do have some other options. They could use the oft injured Starling Marte in the outfield. They have Jesse Winker, who can play the outfield as well. So they do have some other options there. So, it's not the end of the world, although Brendan Nimmo does get on base a lot, and that's his big thing. If he can continue to walk and get on base, he's got to be able to run those bases. And if he's got a bum knee, that can be an issue.
All right, Francisco Alvarez. Now, I have a lot of shares of him because I really believed in him for this year because last year he had the issues which really dropped his power, and I thought that's what did it. And we saw in the last month of the season where he hit like 5 or 6 homers that he was just going to be poised for an amazing year in 2025. But of course, he is injured right away. And by the way, I drafted him this weekend knowing he's injured in Tout Wars for actually a couple leagues, my league, and I proxied for Scott Engel, and I drafted for Scott in the mixed auction, and I bought Alvarez. Now it's unlimited IL, so very quickly we put him in the IL, and you get whoever it is for the first whatever. Maybe you can tell him about the injury and did I do a good job? Of course, I drafted Alvarez late now for like $2, $3, whatever it was, cheap. Earlier in the draft season, 7, 8, 9, $10. It depends on the format. Did I do a good job by drafting him? Do you think his power is going to be sapped? I mean, he broke his hamate bone, right?
Yes, he fractured his hamate bone. He had surgery. He's expected back toward like late May, beginning. I'm sorry, late April, beginning of May, possibly. But this is his second hand injury in 2 years. He actually tore his UCL. There's that in the letter again, UCL, in the left thumb, and he really didn't have any much power after that. He only had 11 home runs last year. Is this going to affect? Is the hamate bone going to affect it? It could. A lot of players have had this hamate bone fracture before and have not come back with power. So his main idea, his main pro to drafting him is his power because he doesn't hit for high average, he doesn't get on base all that often, and he's a catcher, so he's going to be catching with the hand constantly over and over again. It's his left hand that has the fracture. So there is a chance that his power may be sapped in the very beginning. But just like the other players, he needs to have a little bit more of spring training. So they may wait until he's fully 100% healthy and get him back out there because they need him for his power. Whether you did a good job or not getting him for that value, I guess if you have him as if you have his number one catcher, I would say no. If
No,
he's a
number
number
two,
two
number two catcher.
catcher, number two catcher, then number two catchers you can it's a crapshoot sometimes. And taking Alvarez there, it's like a lottery ticket. It can hit and it can't.
Well, I mean, then this way I stream or whatever for the catch of the first month and a half, and then you get I don't know what potentially could be a $10 catcher. I guess maybe not for the first month after until he gets his power back, but still you're getting somebody better than whoever you're streaming for, and I think it's worth more than the $2 at the end of the draft because who else would I have been getting at the end? Jonah
That's true,
Heim,
and
like.
that's true. And listen, if you really want to, Luis Torrens last year actually played pretty well, and he had a pretty decent spring as well.
And I
So
drafted Torrens as a backup in the mixed auction, so
then
just as what I
then
have.
then there you go. So you'll have that backup option as well. And there's a story also coming out of the Mets camp that their next backup catcher, I forgot his name. I'm drawing blanks on names today. I don't know why, but he actually bagged groceries for a supermarket last year, and now he has the possibility of making the Mets opening day roster this year, which is really cool.
I love those stories. That's amazing. I mean, the best
Yes,
story for the Mets was Kevin Burkhardt, who was a used car salesman, and then he became the Mets sideline reporter, and then he's announcing the Super Bowl. I mean,
with
that
Tom
was
Brady. Yes,
with Tom Brady. I mean,
with
that
Tom
is
Brady.
definitely a guy who just went all the way from rags to riches, sort of,
Yes.
in the sports world. That is. Okay, Matt Veer. Let's go to the Tigers. Matt Vierling. I was very high on Matt Vierling going into the season. ATC had him projected well. He was batting third for the Tigers throughout every single playoff game. Double eligibility in third and outfield, super valuable. So I was drafting him all over. I mean, I had to spend $1, or I got him in the reserve in most leagues. I ended up actually right now, especially in those IL only league, the IL unlimited IL leagues, taking him with my last pick. Throw him on, and there we go. What is his injury, and do you think that he comes right back to where he was really quickly?
Well, he's got a right rotator cuff strain. That's a strain in the right shoulder. He has not yet been cleared, or he's going to get cleared hopefully soon to start. He's doing conditioning, but he's not throwing yet. Once he's able to start playing catch, and then he'll start his hitting progression. Then hopefully he'll be able to play. Yeah, I think maybe for a timetable for him to come back is sometime in May. I think April's out of it. And I'd even mentioned Parker Meadows at the same point because he's also dealing with an arm issue, with a right arm nerve issue that they are quote waiting for the nerves to wake up so he can go back to full baseball activity. Parker Meadows has done some light modified baseball work, but there's no timetable for his return. So with two holes in one hole at third base, one hole outfield, Wenzel Perez is a guy who can see more playing time for the Tigers, and a whole slew of other players can actually fill in as backup. So there's those two guys. They both have arm issues, and they both are pretty much on the same trajectory to return, probably around the beginning to mid of May.
If you're in an NFBC league, no IL spots, are those instant drops right now in your first fab pickup week?
Parker Meadows, maybe. Matt Vierling, I'd say no because Matt Vierling does have value because when he does play, he leads off, and
Well, he's
and
batting
if when
third for the Tigers.
but then as for during this last season, he also led off for a lot of games as well because I had him on my team and I played him almost every week because of the fact he was scoring a lot of runs. Um, Vierling is the one guy I probably may hold on to, but Parker Meadows I wouldn't.
Sean Murphy seems to be riddled by the injury bug once again. What's his status?
He has this is another injury very early on in spring training. He fractured a rib after getting hit by a pitch. The fractured rib takes 4 to 6 weeks to heal. Drake Baldwin, a prospect of those, looks to be the starting catcher there. Other possibilities out there is Chadwick Trump, Sandy Leon, Kurt Casale, all these guys we've all seen on the waiver wire before. Sean Murphy is expected to be back hopefully by mid to late April.
Okay. Also, I mean, it's similar to Alvarez. I mean, draft him for a cheap
It's no,
amount. No,
no. I'd say
no.
it's different because Alvarez may affect his power more because
Okay.
is
Okay.
his hand. It's also a fracture. Yes,
So
it's same
Murphy's a better
same.
play. So Murphy thinks a better play.
Yes, Murphy will be back better, back quicker, and also may not affect his power as much. Yes, it's a side problem. Yes, it could be treated similar to like an oblique issue, but it's a fracture. It's not a soft tissue issue. So I think once it's healed, he should have no problem coming back to the level he was that he's normally known to be at.
All right. Spencer Steer, also a guy with a lot of positional qualifications. What's his story, and how do we approach him in fantasy?
So Spencer Steer is also dealing with a shoulder injury. He has some inflammation in his shoulder. He was recently seen starting a throwing program. This actually is this week. He started a throwing program. He's got a right shoulder strain that he had, and he played through it at the end of last year. It limited him to only 7 plate appearances at designated hitter during the spring, so he can come back and play. He will be available, but not for opening day. I think the Reds haven't ruled him out completely yet, but he will be. I expect him to be ruled out for opening day possibly, but not miss that much time, maybe a week.
He's been really heavily discounted in the draft season. I
Yes,
mean, is that overdone?
not necessarily. Also because it's a shoulder, and shoulder can affect power. Any upper body can affect power, and
I
people
mean, he's
get. I
going in
mean,
the 18th round. I mean, last year he was a $13 player. The year before he was a $15 player. He's dual eligible. I mean, he's going for a draft equivalent of just $8, and he's only going to miss a limited amount of time. It sounds like we're all drafting him too low. And ATC's not high on him, even with 420 at bats, which actually, from what you're saying, is low.
but he has to be cleared to return to play. He's not there yet, but he could be cleared pretty soon. If he gets through all his throwing program okay, then his hitting progression okay, then he didn't have a full spring training. So it depends how quickly the Reds push him back. He could be back the first week. He could be back the last week in April. So you have to so like I mentioned earlier on, shoulders are very tricky. You never know what you're going to get with them. You could be out for a short period of time. You could be out for an extended period of time. For a draft equivalent of $8 for Spencer Steer and what he can bring and his versatility of where he can play, I'd rather have him sitting on my bench than Matt Vierling.
Yeah, well, I mean, it's an $8 buy. I mean, all right. I think from what you're saying though, it sounds like the market is a little bit low on him,
Yes,
and ATC is
and
very low
it
on him.
should be, it should be because you don't know when he's going to come back, but based on what he has and based on how he's progressing, it shouldn't be that long.
Okay, Nico Horner. He's a guy that had injuries in the beginning of last season. Came on, had a really good second half. I mean, we were drafting him as like a fourth, maybe even third round player last year, thinking, wow, you're going to get batting average, you're getting the speed, you're getting the runs. And he was not that player until the second half, where he was that player. And he's been going really, really low in drafts this year. Now, he does have a current injury, which you'll tell us in a minute, but he's going like around the 20th round, also about like around a $6, $7 player. I mean, he has, $20 upside, as we've seen 2 years ago from him. I mean, he's going to run when he gets back if he's healthy. Can you just tell us his status? Because, I'm just confused why he's drafted so low. I have him in a couple of leagues, so I'm drafting him at his cheap price.
Well, he had surgery in October to repair a flexor tendon issue in his right forearm. He already missed the first two games in Japan. We knew he wasn't going to play then. He stayed in Arizona to continue his rehab. Um, Horner has been hitting in the cage already. He's already working through a throwing program. He's not going to be ready. He may not be ready for opening day, but if he's not ready for opening day, he may be ready soon after that. So he's a guy that if you're getting a discount, it may be worth it. But he's coming back. This is basically a type of quote unquote Tommy John surgery because it's a flexor tendon with the right arm. It's not wasn't said to be a full Tommy John type surgery, but the surgery was now 6 months, 5 months ago. So he's around the time when position players usually start coming back anyway. So he's going through it. He's a guy that he has a lot of value because of his stolen bases, like you mentioned. If you want to get his backup for now, John Birdie, he steals bases also.
Three for
Miguel
three
Brujan,
today.
he doesn't really steal bases as much. But if you have, let's say you have him, you have an IL slot, and you're playing John Birdie, as soon as he's ready, John Birdie goes out, he goes in, and you're good to go.
Yeah, Birdie's looking good so far in the beginning of the season. Um, with Nico Horner though, he said it's his arm issue. Now he's really there for his legs. Does that mean that we
Correct.
shouldn't worry that he's going to steal bases?
It's not going to affect the stolen bases. It may affect him.
Okay,
The problem is, in order to steal bases, you got to get on base. So
right. And he doesn't have much power,
it's
so it's not like we're
it's
tapping him.
not a matter of the power. So I mean, he's not trying to get the power back. He's just like a contact guy, get on base, steal bases, and the surgery with his arm not affecting his legs. But when you had the surgery on the arm, he's able to continue to work his lower body. So I don't think that's going to be an issue stealing bases for him.
Zach Nato, he was almost 25-30 last year. He had 23 homers, 30 stolen bases. That was some heck of a year. He is injured. What is his injury and his timetable, and should we be drafting him? He's going also like around Nico Horner level, like around the 20th round.
Well, he had shoulder surgery in the off season. He's already begun fielding grounders. He's making throws. He's expected to start the season on the IL and could be ready sometime mid to late April. So who comes back first, Nico Horner or Zach Nato? It's pretty close. I think Horner may come back a little bit earlier. So these guys are they're middle infield guys. They're both in there. Nato can actually has more power than Horner, but they're very similar in their trajectory of where they're supposed to come back sometime mid April toward the hopefully not the end of April, but everyone you always hear the dreaded player has setbacks. You never know when a setback's going to happen. So without having any setbacks, mid-April is for Zach Neto. Same thing with Horner. So those two players are similar in their recovery time.
Okay, Tyler Stevenson. This was a lot of people drafted him as a maybe even a number one catcher, a low number one catcher in leagues. What's his story?
He's going to start the season on the IL with a low grade oblique strain. Low grade means 2 to 3 weeks. So hopefully, 2 to 4 weeks. So hopefully he'll be back soon after that. Jose Trevino is going to be the opening day catcher for the Reds. And, a couple of years ago, Jose Trevino was an all star. So, if you need a guy, I'm sure he's available in most waiver wires.
Do you ever have an oblique injury? I once hurt my oblique.
No, thank God, because having an oblique injury, it's not comfortable at all. It's hard even getting your shirt on.
Yeah, it's funny when I had that and I was playing pickleball and I tried to dart towards the net to get something and I felt something. I could not actually position where the pain was coming from. It's not like I could point to a spot in my back front. Like sometimes it'd be like, oh, it hurts me in the front, like my stomach. Then I'm like, wait a minute, it hurts me in the back. It's something that it really affects like your whole body on the whole side that you have it. It's very tricky.
Yes, that's why when injuries like this come up, the first thing they say is the player has side injury or even a low back or like an armpit type injury because it's the muscles where it is where it's located. That's where you get the pain. It's basically on the side. The only way to actually diagnose it though is with an MRI.
It's funny in baseball you get some detail. You ever hear the hockey injuries? You never hear actually what the injury is. It's always
Upper body injury, lower body injury.
right,
That's it.
upper body, lower body. And what does this guy have? He might have like an MCL tear, lower body injury, or he could have just sprained an ankle. Like you
Yeah,
have no
so
idea from the way
Jacob Degrom has upper body injuries, and Ronald Acuna has lower body injuries. That's
there
it.
you go. While we have Jacob Degrom mentioned, I mean I'm not drafting him at all. I just don't think he's going to make it at all. Are you? Are you any concerned about him? And by the way, even if he does make it through the season, you really think he's going to be the Jacob Degrom of old? Like I feel like an ATC projects him with a high skill level, lower at innings pitched than most others, but just as good a skill level. I don't trust that at all. I don't believe ATC. Like I don't think with so many years of not pitching, I think the projections are going off of some old stuff. And I don't buy it. He's not going to be that sub-3 ERA guy. After all this time, he's 36 years old. Do you
Well,
buy him at all?
I think he'll get probably 85% of what Jacob Degrom was in the past. I read some articles and listening to through the grapevine, hearing that they want to either skip his start every once in a while to monitor him, and even possibly put him on the IL with quote unquote fatigue. I know you're not supposed to mention that beforehand, but they were actually thinking about doing that just to give him a rest so they don't blow his arm out again.
All right, we're going to do a couple more batters and then pitchers. Let's start with Jesus Sanchez. What's his story?
He's got, again, pain on his side, which is most probably going to be an oblique issue. He's going to start the season on the IL. He was taken out of a Grapefruit League game, I think it was last week. He's eligible to return actually on April 6th, so it's possible that he'll be back by then. If it's only considered mild, they said the Marlins said actually it's only a precautionary move, so that's just something to watch for. But Marlins prospect Griffin Conine looks like to be the guy to start opening day for the Marlins in right field.
Jung Hoo Lee. He had that big injury issue last year for the Giants. I drafted him in Tout Wars last year. That didn't work out. Can you tell us what he had last year, what he has this year, and if you're concerned?
Well, last year he ran into a wall and had ended up needing shoulder surgery, and he was out for the year. Where he had a dislocation, but here he's dealing with a back injury, and it just kept nagging at him for a good portion of spring training. And he got an MRI. The MRI was negative. The Giants don't seem too concerned. They're not saying how long he's going to be out for, but they also said they don't
Is
expect it
Reuven
to be long
concerned?
term. Am I concerned? Yes, because he's a guy who may go 15-15 or something like that, or in that range, and he needs his speed. He needs to play the outfield, and he runs into walls in the outfield. And if he has a back issue, I don't know, but I mean back issues like this I mentioned, soft muscle. If there's no structural damage, which there's no structural damage, if it's just soft tissue and it's spring training, you may be able to get a discount on him, and he may be good to go. When the season starts. We don't know yet because the Giants are being very coy about it.
Yeah, I'm not drafting Jung Hoo Lee. Here's another guy who's also similar profile, Dalton Varsho, more like a 25th guy, bad batting average. But Varsho, is he going to start the season on the IL, you think?
Yes, he will. They already said that he's likely to begin this season on the IL. He had shoulder surgery last September. He's been playing in spring training games, but only as a DH. But Blue Jays manager John Schneider said that they're not going to have him start on the IL until he's able and cleared to play the outfield. So he's able to play. He's able to DH. They may activate him pretty early on because he can hit, but I think that his value is more in the outfield and his stolen bases, and they want him to be completely better.
I actually find myself drafting him because, again, you have to have IL spots in your league, or maybe even not because he might come back sooner. But he's going past pick 320. Like in a 15-team league, it's like round 33 or so.
Right.
So he's at the end of the bench. I don't know. Take him stash, and he can become a pretty productive fifth outfielder. I mean, 2015 is nothing to sneeze about in a five outfielder, five-team league. I think he's worth the stash as a take him in your last bench round. I did in two leagues.
Yeah, he's interesting. He'd be even more interesting if he still had his catcher eligibility. But
Yeah, of
to
course.
me, I mean, his profile you can probably get on the waiver wire because he's not really much of a power guy. He's more known for his stolen bases. So he's a guy you can probably get on the waiver wire easily. So I wouldn't necessarily waste a pick in the draft with him. I think I
Really?
can get
I
someone
think I
else like
think
that.
he's actually more unique. You can find 2015 players on the waiver wire in a 15-team
Um,
league.
I, okay. He's got coming back from shoulder surgery. I don't know his power. I didn't check his spring stats, but he's been playing, which is great. But if he's coming off of shoulder injuries again are more tricky than any other body part, I think, and they could zap their power, and we don't know how his shoulder's going to react to playing almost every day.
All right, we're going to end the hitting with a Met, of course, Jeff McNeil, the Squirrel. Um, I think that we should discuss who his replacements are. It could be Brett Beatty or Luis Angel Acuna. Why don't you tell us the injury and what you think the playing time will be in New York?
Well, he's got the dreaded right oblique injury. It's considered a low grade strain. They got an MRI. He's supposed to be out 3 to 4 weeks. And he was very interesting, especially because of the fact that if Brandon Nimmo couldn't play, he would get more playing time in the outfield. But now because he's out 3 to 4 weeks, he was shut down from baseball activities for 7 to 10 days. He's gonna need 2 to 3 weeks to go through a hitting progression, and then he'll finally be ready to start. So you're probably looking at a late April return for him. But what's interesting is Luis Angel Acuna can play second base. What's interesting is Brett Beatty could play second base. So these guys I know Acuna wasn't drafted that often. I mean, if in deeper leagues he was, but Brett Beatty wasn't even drafted at all until much later. These guys should be bumped up because Brett Beatty's had actually a pretty good spring training. So has Acuna. So these are two guys that you may get cheap, and they may keep Jeff McNeil as a super utility guy on the bench depending on how they play.
It's a good problem to have for the Mets. All right, let's go to pitching. I had no interest in this guy until I saw him, and he looks pretty good in spring training. Spencer Strider. Now you gotta be cautious with the Tommy John returnees. Why don't you tell us your concerns about him? I mean, how many innings do you think you can get out of Strider, and can you be confident he's going to return to 90% of the form that he was?
Well, I think he's going to be back probably mid to late April, so he's probably going to miss about 3, 4, possibly 5 starts. But he's looked good so far. I mean, his velocity was at 98 in his first outing, which switched with a couple of striking out. He struck out Roman Anthony on a 98-mile-an-hour fastball, which is pretty good. His off-speed stuff was great. The one thing that players are always concerned about coming back from the surgery he had an internal bracing of the right elbow, which is a modified Tommy John. They're always worried about control and how the control is going to be. Same like Sandy Alcantara. He's coming back from a similar type of surgery. You're worried about control. How is he able to throw strikes? Well, in his first outing, 23 of his 27 pitches were strikes. So that seems pretty good.
That checks
And
out.
his stuff seemed pretty still unhittable. Are you going to get the same Spencer Strider you had a couple of years ago? Probably not to start with, but you can. But usually, from what I've seen, players who have Tommy John surgery, they get to their peak to back almost to where they were about 18 months after the surgery. He's not at that point, so you're not going to get his peak maybe until the end of the season, like mid to late end of the season. But he's still a top guy who you can get. Is he overvalued at this point? I don't know because he's got upside because we know what he can do and he flashed it in spring training already. So he's a guy that if you want to take an injury risk for the draft, he's probably the one guy that I probably would take that injury risk for.
Over under 120 innings for the year for him.
I'm going to say over, but that will include playoffs.
All right. Well, if we're talking about regular season, ATC has been at
Regular season,
110.
I'm gonna say 135, so it's over.
Okay. I mean, ATC has been at 120, so I guess ATC is a little
Yeah,
bit
well,
low.
he also was coming back sooner than I thought, and initially we thought he was gonna come back in May. Now it's looking like a mid to late April return, so you may get a couple of extra starts there.
Yeah. I don't think he's a great ERA guy. I mean, 2 years ago he had a 3.86 ERA. That was his great year. 281 strikeouts though. That's I mean, salivate over that.
That's what you have him
Yeah. The
for,
year
sure.
before that, he had 200 strikeouts in 130 innings. I mean, the guy is we're talking like 35% strikeout rate. No, more. Like 38% strikeout rate for his career. It's crazy.
Yes,
Crazy good.
yes.
Uh, Garrett Cole, not much to say other than see you in late 2026, I guess.
Mid to late 2026. Yes, he's done. He Tommy John surgery, unfortunately, and
I wasn't drafting him either way, by the way, because I don't like his ERA. I feel like he throws a clunker every so often, but I guess that's it for him.
well, Will Warren has looked decent so far, and he's a guy who's supposed to take his place. I mean, Luis Hill also he's got an injury as well, and he's going to be out for a while. He's dealing with a soft tissue issue as well. He's dealing with a high grade right lat strain, which was confirmed by an MRI. He was shut down for 6 weeks. Shut down for 6 weeks. That opens the door for Marcus Stroman. Marcus Stroman is interesting also because Marcus Stroman in the beginning of the year usually pitches pretty well. He usually fades toward the end of the year. He's done that almost every year. And the fact that he has, no question, he has the rotation spot because those two guys are out. I think he's a guy to pick up. Will Warren is a little bit cheaper. I mean, Marcus Stroman is going dirt cheap also because no one trusts Marcus Stroman because of what he does at the end of the year. But usually, beginning of the year, he's actually pretty good.
Yeah, and I guess those types of guys. You take in the beginning of the year and you trade them if you're in a. I guess it'd have to be in a deep league though. By the way,
Yeah,
I think I've told you the story with Marcus Stroman, but I once made a comment on Twitter. I don't know, not at Stroman. It was somebody else, and I said, "Yeah, Stroman is good, but not elite." And I guess somebody must have forwarded him the tweet or whatever, and he puts up a picture of him without a shirt, I should say, with his humongous dog, being like those haters, I'm gonna get you, or something like intimidating. I'm like, okay, wow. I was just making a fantasy comment, and you know well, next thing I know, I got a picture of Strowman without a shirt with a big dog saying, I'm gonna get you. Ooh, boy.
well, Strowman is a character. Either he's very polarizing. You either love him or you hate him. That's just the way it goes. And when he's
Sounds like he
pitching well,
hates
you love
me.
him. Well, when he pitches well, you love him. When he doesn't, you hate him. He can rub people the wrong way, even though I think he has quote unquote good intentions with everything he does and says. But I try to look for the good in everybody.
Yeah. What about Yankees? So on the Yankees, Clark Schmidt, he's also looked pretty good, and a lot of people are really high on him. What's his injury issue?
Yeah, Clark Schmidt. This will make 60% of the Yankees starting rotations that will start on the IL because Schmidt is still dealing with a shoulder issue. Um, Aaron Boone said that he will not be built up enough to start the season. He will not be built up to 75 or 80 pitches to start the season, so he's going to probably start on the IL, which opens the door for a pop. If Will Warren doesn't make the roster, Carlos Carrasco can actually make the roster. Is Carlos Carrasco rosterable? If you really have to, I guess. But I mean, Schmidt, he's been throwing live batting practice already, but he's still not 100% there. So the Yankees are going to wait on him because if the Yankees are going to do anything, he's going to be integral. And last year he missed a lot of time also because of an injury, so they want to be extremely careful because when he did pitch, he was pretty effective.
And we thought the Mets had issues. Well, let's do the Mets now since I just mentioned it. But Sean Manaea, Frankie Montas are in the injury list. Those are our signings this past year. Clay Holmes, though, has looked really, really good, by the way. Opening day
Yes.
starter for the Mets. What's the story on Manaea and Montas? And I'll throw in Kodai Senga. Is he fully healthy?
Senga is healthy, but they're gonna bring him along slowly. They may have a limit for him to start with, just because they want to keep him healthy. They may go the 6-man rotation because of that, and that's why they had so much depth, just in case they had to do this type of thing. Because Sean Manaea, early on, we mentioned this early in the podcast already, right oblique strain. He's starting on the IL. Best case scenario is that he will be built back up toward mid to late May. Tyler McGill is probably the guy who's going to fill in. We'll see how long that goes. And Frankie Montas was diagnosed with a high grade lat strain, similar to what Luis Hill was diagnosed with, and that's
Syndergaard from a
usually
couple
out.
years ago, if you remember that.
Yes, it's a minimum of not pitching for 6 to 8 weeks. Not pitching, not doing anything. He did get a PRP injection. Montas did. He started playing catch already, so that's a good sign. But the guy who may fill in is Griffin Canning, and Griffin Canning, former Angel, has actually looked pretty good in the spring. So the Mets are, like I mentioned before about AJ Minter. Mentioned he not only did he mention about the doctors, but he also mentioned the Mets pitching lab. So pitchers are now coming to the Mets because look what they did last year with
With
Severino. Look what they
everybody.
did
With everybody.
with everybody. The whole rotation. They're basically a rotation of nobodies that David Stearns knows how to. He knows how to put a bullpen a starting rotation together on the cheap. He did it with Milwaukee all for many years. He's doing it now with the Mets, and he's finding the diamonds in the rough. And the Mets quote unquote pitching lab is shining them, and you never know what you're going to get out of these guys now. So Griffin Canning may be a sleeper to start the season because he's going to be in the rotation possibly.
Let's talk George Kirby. I mean, I had him really high up on my draft list. Do I knock him down? I mean, tell me what's going on and concerns. Because he's the type of guy, and he went in Tout Wars for like dirt cheap. I was thinking of buying him because, again, if he's healthy in the end of the year, okay, then you got a fantastic guy for nothing. Ryan Hallam bought him for just $9 in Tout Wars points head to head, 12-team league. But again, it's where there's a playoff. I kind of think that $9 is a steal for Ryan. What do you think?
Well, I think maybe he's dealing with
Maybe.
right shoulder inflammation. He's starting the season on the IL. He already received an injection. The manager Dan Wilson actually called it a biologics injection, which probably means either a PRP or something similar to that. And he has already begun strengthening activities, and that's great and everything. And that's great, but I mean, what does that mean to us? That means to us that he's still a ways away. He didn't do any spring, spring training was cut short for him. He still has to go through extended spring training. He has to build up again. Building up is a 3-4 week, period. He has to get through his throwing progressions and everything like that. And he may have setbacks because right shoulder inflammation means that there's swelling in the shoulder. It doesn't mean there's anything else going on. It doesn't mean there's a tear or anything, but there's inflammation, and that inflammation could be coming from anywhere, and anything can trigger it and cause him to have setbacks. When is he going to be back? He may be back probably if without any setbacks. I can see him back maybe end of May, beginning of June.
Well, then, so the $9 has got to be a good deal, right, for the risk? I mean, we're talking about $9. That's a very low round pick for a guy who could be back. With fantastic pitcher back in a month.
About 2.5 months. But again, it's a shoulder injury. He can have setbacks, and shoulders are much more.
Would you take that
$9? And he'd be my number 3. If he's my number 3 pitcher, sure.
Right. I mean, I certainly didn't take that, but I was going a very different strategy.
No,
I was
as a
thinking
number
of it.
3 pitcher that they can replace, sure.
And would you rather have? I mean, I bought Jose Barrios for 8. Would you rather have Jose Barrios for 8 or George Kirby for 9 in the head-to-head points league where there's a playoff?
I'd rather have Jose Barrios because Jose
Really?
Barrios is pitching. He's healthy. He's an accumulator. He'll get you strikeouts, and you'll have George Kirby on your roster. That's great, but you're not getting his stats until he comes back. And if you're not getting his
Again,
stats, and you're
playoffs.
building it, you're
Playoffs.
baking his stats to what he has.
But playoffs.
Then yes, but you're going to fall behind, and you need to make the playoffs first. So if you fall behind to the point where you can't catch up because you're banking so much on George Kirby, then you're not, it's not worth it. But if you have lowered expectations for what he's going to give you, then you can take him.
Yeah, I'm just trying to play devil's advocate here. If you do own him in an NFBC league, you got to keep him. Obviously, you're not cutting him at all.
No, I don't. You can't. No,
wait too
because
high.
especially most people, a lot of people drafted him even before the injury happened, and even after the injury happened, he was still drafted.
If like
So,
a
yes,
Jose
he's-
Barrios was injured though in NFBC, would you cut him at that level?
If he had the same type of injury, yes, because he's not as valuable long term. But the guy who may take the roster spot for him for now is Emerson Hancock. He's one of the top prospects. He may start the season in the rotation.
Yeah, I just wanted to get a feel for the level of when. Okay, well, before we go on, do I see this correctly? Time for the Injury Gurus trivia of the week.
So the next pitcher we're going to talk about, and the team we talk about every year on the injury report, is Clayton Kershaw. Now, my question to you has to do with the Dodgers rotation. How many pitchers have thrown more than 140 innings for the Dodgers over the last 3 years?
Oh boy, this trivia is just for me. We don't have a guest
They're
here.
just for you.
How many pitchers have thrown at least 140 combined or in any?
Combined in one season.
No. So in any of the last 3 seasons.
Any of the last 3 seasons, how many pitchers have thrown 140 innings in 1 year?
My last 3 years.
And remember, this is the World Series winning Dodgers.
Yeah. 4.
Or even better, who led the Dodgers in innings pitched last year?
Was it Glass now?
Nope.
No. I'm gonna go. The answer. I'm gonna go with 8. I'm gonna go with 8 over the last 3 years.
Okay, so in 2024, one pitcher pitched over 140 innings, 140.1 innings. That was Gavin Stone.
Really?
In 2023,
Stone led the team in innings last year.
Stone led the Dodgers in innings last year.
Really? Wow.
2023, nobody did it. The highest pitching in innings for a pitcher for the Dodgers in 2023 was Clayton Kershaw with 131. So that's still only one. In 2022, there were two players who did pitch over 140 innings. Julio Urias and Tyler Anderson both had over 170 innings. So the answer is only 3 pitchers in the last 3 years have thrown more than 140 innings for the Dodgers. And they're in the playoffs and World Series how often? This is the way this is the way baseball is trending. Wow. That you don't need a starter for 140 innings. You can make it any. You don't need to spend money in starting
Stone,
pitching.
I would not have actually guessed that. Holy cow!
Yes. And then when I looked it up myself, I was completely shocked. I thought Tyler Glasnow also, but when I wanted to talk about Kershaw, because Kershaw almost did it in 2023, and actually in 2021, Julio Urias did it also over 140 innings. So did Walker Buehler. So over the last 4 years, you have a total of 5 players who did it.
Well, if Kershaw is your healthiest pitcher, then you're in trouble.
Well, that's, yes, 100%. And he's coming off surgery of his left toe and left knee from the offseason. He was placed on the 60-day IL already. He's not 100% yet, but he felt good throwing off the mound a couple of times. And the Dodgers are hopeful that he comes back at the end of May.
Yeah, I'm not drafting Kershaw in any league. I guess maybe in a best ball late, maybe.
Okay. Do you have more? Who will throw more innings this year if Kershaw comes back healthy? Who will throw more innings this year, Clayton Kershaw or Max Scherzer?
I'm gonna say Scherzer.
Scherzer, who's already dealing with injuries already, dealing with a thumb injury already.
Well, Kershaw is already injured.
And I think Scherzer is a little bit older, so the age I think trumps it. I wouldn't be shocked if Clayton Kershaw has more innings than Max Scherzer.
So you're totally off Scherzer, right? Because he's another injury.
I know. I want nothing to do with him. I don't know why the Blue Jays gave him so much money.
Jared Jones. Well, he's going for a second opinion. When you hear, Reuven, that a guy is going for a second opinion, what percentage of the time should we expect the worst?
That usually means the first opinion is not favorable, but they're doing their due diligence to make sure they do everything they're supposed to.
So that means we should assume that he's out for the year, or at least has a greater than 80% chance he's out for half the year?
With the elbow discomfort that he had during a bullpen session, he's not making opening day already. We know that already. I believe this was the director of sports medicine for the Pirates. He actually said, quote, "I don't want to be an alarmist, but was quick to point out that the team is still in the information gathering stage." Yikes. This probably means he will probably need surgery. They're trying to think about maybe he'll go, to try the PRP way of going about it. If I have Jared Jones on my roster already, I think he's an easy drop. I don't see anyone picking him up next week.
I guess if you have him in the NFBC, you wait a week. You don't use
You,
this
you,
fab
you wait
period
you
on the
wait a week or two, and you'll probably get news by then because
right.
they're not gonna linger on this, and you'll know pretty soon. But
And if you're in a draft, is there any format that you would pick them up right now? I guess if
no,
you were in a
no.
20-team mono league, sure.
20 team mono league, and I guess, but again, if it's taking up one of your roster spots, and this guy may give you a complete zero, I'd rather have a middle reliever or anything, just get
Well,
something out
20
of that.
team
But
mono league in a reserve round, I would take him because he's got to be the 10% chance that he's not is got to be better than
but
the
the fact that he went for a second opinion, that I don't think it's
yeah,
even
it's
a
not
ten
good.
percent chance he comes back. I think it's more like a
Okay,
five or
let's go
two.
with Tobias Myers. What's his story?
Tobias Myers, he is dealing with. He's on the IL with a left oblique with a left, I believe it's left oblique strain. Yes, it was the MRI was quote better than we were expecting, according to manager Tom Murphy, who added that Myers could rejoin the rotation before the end of April. Tyler Alexander is a guy who could fill a spot for Milwaukee until he comes back, but it's an oblique issue, and pitchers tend to take a little bit longer to come back from oblique. So they're saying end of April. I wouldn't be surprised if it's the beginning of May.
Red Sox now. Brian Bayo, Cutter Crawford. Guys I actually do like. What are we doing?
Yeah, okay. So Brian Bayo was experiencing shoulder soreness early in camp, and he was not able to build up enough stamina and get going. So he's going to open the season on the IL. He's behind schedule, but he's progressing in his bullpen. Quinn Priester, Richard Fitz could break camp with the Red Sox rotation, instead of him. And Cutter Crawford has been experiencing patellar tendon soreness or pain in the front of his knee, and he did throw a bullpen session last week. He's not fully ramped up yet. They said it's probably gonna be a long shot to make opening day. So, he needs at least another couple bullpens and live pitching first. He may need a rehab assignment because he has to build up also, especially if he's gonna be a starter.
Not some people that we should be drafting in NFBC at the moment, right?
No, but if you think you have room on your bench and you see all your guys are healthy first couple weeks and you see them on the waiver wire, get him. You can get him and hold on cheap and just cut bait. And if you need another
But like a
spot.
15-team IL league, I mean, which do you prefer, Bayo or Crawford? If we had to pick one,
I prefer Crawford because it's a knee and it has nothing to do with obliques are always worse than the knee.
now here's somebody that I was very high on. I have a lot of shares of him, Cody Bradford, and he was having such a great spring. So disappointed to hear that he is injured. What is his story? Am I holding on to him in NFBC leagues? Because I had him as like a $3 player I was getting on the bench.
Yeah, well, he's got an elbow issue. He's being shut down from throwing for 4 weeks. So he's not even going to pick up a ball
Well,
at
that's a
least
drop
until
then, right?
he's not even picking up a ball until mid to late April, and then you have to build back up and then see how things go. And now with John Gray out, also John Gray got hit in the wrist and during a spring train and broke his wrist. He's going to miss about a month or so. But that's almost 40% of the Rangers rotation that's out. But guys who may make the opening roster because of this, Kumar Rocker, and I'm hearing rumblings about Jack Leiter also. They're saying that Jack Leiter has, quote, earned his way into the rotation.
They just signed Patrick Corbin. Is that something to start?
That's probably going to be an insurance option because
Don't put it in your little fantasy lineup, by the way. Stay far away from Patrick Corbin.
well, they want him because he's an innings eater, and he'll just go out there and quote unquote take one for the team when it comes to it because he'll pitch you a bunch of innings. They're not going to be quality innings, and if you're playing a team where your offense is clicking, then it's not going to be an issue. Every once in a while, he'll throw a gem, and people think, oh, let's pick up Patrick Corbin, and then they realize, oh wait, we're picking up Patrick Corbin. So I think they want Jack Leiter in there. They want Kumar Rocker there. I don't know when they want them there. Do they want it for opening day? Do they want to start Jack Leiter's clock? That's up to the Rangers.
Wait, so Jacob DeGrom is now one of the healthiest pitchers in Texas?
Uh, yes,
And
yes.
what are they gonna do? They're gonna skip starts. They don't have anybody else to skip them with. I guess you can plug in Patrick Corbin.
That's the exact reason why they got Patrick Corbin
Oh
because
boy.
they have two players out, two pitchers out, and they have Jacob DeGrom on their roster.
Oh boy.
Listen, they have an offense that can carry them, but I mean, this is like
You go
it's
from
getting
DeGrom to
silly.
Corbin. We're saved. Patrick Corbin is
Yes,
here to save Jacob DeGrom. Oh boy.
yes. I think they cancel. I think they cancel each other out though.
Are the Rangers making the playoffs this year? I think not.
Well, the American League is kind of, not that great this year, so you never know.
Grayson Rodriguez. What's his story?
Oh, Grayson Rodriguez, he's the top prospect. Everyone always loves him. They think he's going to be the next coming of sliced bread, and the problem is that he can't seem to stay healthy. He has a tricep injury. He was on the IL last year with a lat strain. Orioles manager said that Rodriguez will not be ready for opening day. He's noted that Rodriguez is not dealing with any structural damage, but the discomfort in his right elbow and triceps is enough to keep him out for a quote some time. He's already thrown from 75 feet, which is a good sign, but he did also go for a second opinion, so he may be trying to throw through it.
Yu Darvish. I was sitting next to Nick Pollock in the head-to-head points, the Tout Wars head-to-head points, and he picks Yu Darvish, and I turned to him like, really? He's like, absolutely. I'm like, is he gonna make it through the year? Sure, he will. I mean, sorry, Nick, but I don't know. Yu Darvish? I mean, he hasn't made it to opening day.
He's 38. He hasn't been shut down yet. He did play catch this past week, but he's experiencing elbow inflammation after his last start, which is interesting because before that they mentioned it. They called it fatigue. They didn't call it elbow inflammation. So they changed the diagnosis from fatigue to elbow inflammation, which it's a lot worse. I'd rather have fatigue, like, building up muscles and have fatigue and build up the muscle and the fatigue goes away. Elbow inflammation usually doesn't just go away on its own unless they catch what's going on and fix the problem. Stephen Kolek could start for the Padres, and also Randy Vasquez is an option. Also, Randy Vasquez, obviously, is one guy. If you don't know who he is, they got him in the Juan Soto trade.
Yeah, I guess. I mean, Nick only spent $1 or $2 on him, so his theory
Then it's
is,
worth
well,
it.
it's an upside dart. When he pitches, he'll be great. Otherwise, unlimited IL, we put him. But I don't know. I still think that, you know, your last one or two pitchers, not even your reserve round. We're talking in the actual auction. I don't know. There's still some good players that you can snag at the end. I'm not really a
Well, you,
fan of
you
that.
think you think Max Scherzer will get some innings? Do you think Yu Darvish will have more innings than Max Scherzer?
Nope. I think Yu Darvish is no. What's Yu Darvish's innings in the last couple of years? Yu Darvish had
I,
82 innings last year, 136 the year before, but Yu Darvish is 38 years old. How old is Scherzer? Was it 40?
if I had to guess, I think Scherzer's
40.
43.
40. Yeah, Scherzer
Oh,
only had 40.
he
You
seems a
know
lot
what?
older.
I don't know. Would you put Scherzer over Darvish for innings or not?
I'd stay away from everybody. I don't want to.
Well, yeah, that's for sure. That's for sure. Yeah. All right. Well, what are we dealing with? These are like guys from like 7, 8 years ago that were amazing.
Yeah, and they're
Um,
trying to make themselves still relevant. They're trying to do the Justin
yeah.
Verlander thing, but not everybody's Justin
What
Verlander.
about Brandon Woodruff? Now Woodruff is coming back from
Yes.
and a high upside player. I haven't even looked at him, and he's going also cheap in leagues. Is he somebody who maybe we're undervaluing?
Well, he's coming back from shoulder surgery. He already threw a live batting practice, and he pitched in one spring game already. So he's tentatively scheduled to pitch in further games. They have to build up his strength. They haven't given a timeline for his return yet, but he's a guy that if you want an upside guy, and he will come back. He's back from surgery. He's better. He's throwing. He just needs to get build up the strength and everything like that. So I'd have a little bit more confidence in him than let's say some of the older pitchers we mentioned just now. So
Yeah, I think so also. Okay. Ranger Suarez. I mean, he's had like up years, down years. Are you nervous about Suarez? Should we stay away from him? Because I mean, you and I drafted him on one or two teams. We thought, good upside pick for, $2 at the end of the auction.
yeah, exactly. And $2 is perfectly fine for what we're getting for him. He's feeling tightness in his back. He went for an MRI, and it's not as quote not as bad as the injury that he had the end of last year. He had a back injury last year as well. So we'll see how he does. He may be ready for the start of the season. He may not be ready for the start of the season. We don't know yet. When he was healthy, the beginning of last year, he was lights out. But again, it's Ranger Suarez. It's not Jacob DeGrom throwing from a couple of years ago. Joe Ross could fill in for him though, so he can be serviceable, and especially playing for the Phillies, he may get some wins out of him. So he's a guy that you can probably get almost for nothing right now. If he makes the rotation, he may be worth it.
And the last player, Shane Bieber. He had 12 innings last year. He hasn't been on my radar at all. I mean, I have him as don't draft. Are we gonna?
Well,
Is it? Can we be
well,
surprised?
he had Tommy John surgery last April. He's still throwing bullpens. He's progressing to throwing 5 times a week. There's no timeline for his return, but his surgery was last April. So doing the timeline, you're thinking maybe 12 to 14 months. So you're probably looking at a end of May. For him, I'd probably say closer to June or July return. But he's a guy to have, to think about because he's not necessarily a strikeout guy. He's more of a contact guy and possibly ERA and playing for a decent team and get you some wins. He's not a guy I think I would roster to begin the season, but he's a guy to have on your radar and just monitor, and we'll see when he comes back.
If you're an unlimited IL, the guy they take in the reserve round and
Yes.
stash.
Yes.
Okay. So
Yes.
you're way more high on Bieber than you are on all of Darvish and Scherzer and Kershaw. Yes.
Yes, but I do also think that Brandon Woodruff will come back before Bieber does.
So that's the pecking order. You got Woodruff, Bieber, and then
Then the whole mess of older
the whole mess
pitchers.
to stay away from. Okay.
Yes,
Well, where does Benaya fit in that? It got to be higher than both of these guys.
higher than both those guys because Manai's going to come back sooner, I think. So and his upside is he's playing on a good team and he did very well since he changed
Yeah.
his
And where does
pitching
like
slot.
Brian Bayo, Carter Crawford fit? Where does that fit there?
I think those guys would be between Woodruff and Bieber. I think that's probably where I put those two guys.
Okay. Well, I mean, that's it. There's no injury report today because the whole show is an injury report. Any last things to say or share, Reuven? Thank you so much for going through this. I mean, usually we bring on a guest, an expert, but to be honest, there's no better expert than you in this field.
Yeah, and this is why we work very well as a team because you're the numbers guy, I'm the injury guy, and we try to put everything together. You can catch all my stuff here on Beat the Ship Podcast every week. You can also read my stuff on Rotobowler. I have a weekly article that comes out during the season. My first article already came out discussing all the injuries that we already mentioned, plus others as well. And it comes out every week to help you with your fab pickups.
And I'm Ariel Cohen. Hopefully, my voice was pleasant enough to listen to through the show. It held up a little bit, but again, thank you for listening. I thought this was an important show. I'm on Fangraphs. I'm on Rotobowler. Twitter at ATCNY. ATC projections are up. There was an update midweek in time for your draft weekend, and there'll be another update before opening day the following week. That'll be it for preseason ATC. I'm up on Fangraphs. We're up on Rotobowler. We're also on RotoWire. And as we mentioned before, ATC projections are now on at Yahoo. And what's special about Yahoo is that if you're actually drafting a league in Yahoo, you can actually use the ATC projections in the draft software as the league is drafting. You have to have Yahoo Premium to do that. Otherwise, it does give you ATC, but its ATC will be embedded with everything else. But if you do have Yahoo Premium, you will be able to draft with ATC. That is a first. So we're very, very excited about that. Again,
Why couldn't
ATC
you wait?
all
Why
over.
couldn't you wait a couple of weeks? Because I have 2 home leagues drafting on Yahoo this coming week. You could have waited 2 more weeks just to get whatever.
Oh, so that they don't have
So they
access
don't have
to
the
that?
same numbers that I'm using. Yes, that kind of hurts. That kind of affects it. Yeah.
Is that right? Oh, wow. All right. Well,
Yes.
sorry, Reuven. I guess they'll see the greatness, but maybe they don't have Yahoo Premium there. So grab yours. Grab yours today. That's my advertisement for Yahoo. But no, I'm very excited to work with Yahoo this year. It's going to be great. And ATC is in all the RotoWire draft software. A lot of people love the RotoWire auction and draft software. Last year it wasn't available yet, but this year you can draft with ATC in RotoWire. I've heard really good things. Now I've seen it. It's good. I have my own draft software that I personally built, so I don't use anybody else's. But it actually does really look really robust. So I
Now,
would recommend
during
it.
during the season, you can catch me also on Twitter at MLB Injury Guru. I'll tweet out injury updates. How often do you think we're going to be getting in-season updates for ATC?
All right. Well, the way ATC rest of season works in season is that it's updated nightly. What happens is that the playing time goes from being projected by me to being projected by Jason Martinez over at Fangraphs. It's the Fangraphs depth charts, and that is updated overnight. So everything will actually be daily. The ATC rate, though, will be updated every 3 to 4 weeks. So, as you start the season, you're pretty much getting what ATC rates are preseason. But then as things happen, ATC will change a little bit. So the rates change about every month, let's say, a little bit more frequent than a month. But the playing time is updated instantaneously every single day. So ATC depth charts, rest of season will be available pretty much, I think, the first weekend after the season starts. Then they'll turn on, ATC will be static for the year, and ATC rest of season will be turned on following that. All right, well, that's it. Once again, thank you so much for listening to the show. Great episode, Reuven. We'll be back for the next episode, probably in a week. We'll do some bold predictions or something. There won't be another episode before opening day, so we want to wish you really good luck for all of you in your draft weekend. Hopefully you've had great advice all over. We tried to give you really great advice from doing our position preview. We had the prospect episode, the mock draft episode, just a relief pitcher episode. A lot of people have commented and said they really loved this whole draft season. So thank you again for listening to the show as always. Thank you again, Reuven. Have a great draft season, and we'll see you next time on the Beat the Shift podcast. So long.
Thanks for listening to the Beat the Shift podcast presented by Fangraphs. Follow us on Twitter at beat_shift_pod.